This podcast is part of the Everyday Heroes Podcast Network, the network for first responders and those who support them.
All right, welcome to Memorial Day for Scissors and Scrubs. We like to cover, our military issues on Memorial Day. It's a another happy, joyous episode for us. I just want to add Scissors and Scrubs, which we are now a member of the Everyday Hero Podcast Network, which we're very proud to be members of. And this week, Laura, what are we talking about this week?
I'm talking about Agent Orange.
Agent Orange, that's rough shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring on a little Legionnaires disease.
Nice.
There's a reason it's called that. So I think mine's like a story.
Yeah, mine's like very factual.
Yeah, so I think you should go first.
Okay.
I do want to add, which it's going to get back to our summer series of last year, that I was at work the other night and one of the new people calls me and he's like, so we had a patient and I pulled a tick off the patient.
Oh.
That's exactly what I said. I was like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, we pulled a tick off the patient. I'm like, that's gross. And I was like, was she wearing gloves? Did she get the head? We've read it back all my tick episodes.
If you could pull up the podcast while you're doing that.
Getting buggy with it?
Tips.
Yeah, it'll give you all the tips. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, she got everything, but what should I do with it? Should I send it to pathology? I'm like, yeah, absolutely send it to pathology. Ugh.
They're lucky they found it.
No kidding.
I mean, the patient's like,
so I'm like, you don't want her to come down with some weird disease and then blame the hospital. Right. So like, yes, you absolutely have to send that. But I just thought that was so bizarre. All the years I've been doing this, I've never pulled a bloodsucker off of a human being.
No.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We put them on.
So Agent Orange, what do I know about Agent Orange? What I know from the movies, that they spread it to kill foliage and made everybody sick.
Yes.
That's what I know about Agent Orange.
Very, very sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to me.
Okay. You'll have to excuse my voice.
She's got the 1-900 voice going on.
I have a little laryngitis, but the
She's
show
must go
on. Yeah. All right. Agent Orange is a powerful defoliant used during the Vietnam War between 1962 and 1971. The U.S. forces sprayed this and other very powerful herbicides over huge areas of Vietnam for two reasons. One was to strip the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army of cover because they could hide in the...
Well, if you've ever seen Vietnam, it's a jungle.
Foliage.
It's a big jungle. And so they could hide under big palm fronds and all kinds of shit.
So they just took that away from them. And then they wanted to kill any crops that the Viet Cong might need for food or whatever.
Such a great war.
Yeah. So they dumped 20 million gallons of these herbicides.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So it was a great idea.
Yeah.
Right?
In theory, as most of your ideas are. They're great in theory. They just don't play out well.
Yeah. There's a manufacturing problem, however. An Agent Orange contained large amounts of, TCDD. It's a dioxin, which are extremely toxic. Extremely toxic. So the dioxins do not wash away easily. They are not removed when it rains. So it's not like they dump it and then it rains and it like kind of runs away. It stays in the environment for years. It builds up in the soil and it accumulates in the food chain.
So they didn't just fuck them for a short time.
Oh,
it was a lifelong problem.
Yeah.
They really screwed them.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Dioxins are fat soluble. Exposure to TCDD, which is a dioxin, is known to have immediate and long-term health effects.
Excellent.
There are 14 health conditions associated with Agent Orange. There's
just
a lot.
14?
Just 14. 14 big ones. There's chronic B-cell leukemia that causes weakness and fatigue, fever, pain in the upper left abdomen because your spleen enlarges, frequent infections, unexplained weight loss, small red spotting in the skin, swollen lymph nodes, and night sweats. It causes Hodgkin's lymphoma, which also causes weakness and fatigue, fever, pain in the upper left abdomen again because your spleen enlarges, frequent infections, unexplained weight loss, the small red spotting in the skin, swollen lymph nodes, night sweats, severe itching, increased sensitivity to alcohol, pain in the lymph nodes after drinking alcohol.
Uh-oh.
It causes multiple myeloma.
Yeah, that's not a good one. That is not a good one.
It gives you bone pain, especially in the chest or the spine, fatigue, confusion, weight loss, weakness, numbness in the legs, nausea, loss of appetite, excessive thirst, constipation.
Oof, that's never good.
No, it causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Enough with the lymphomas. I'm done with the lymphomas.
Yeah, it causes all these cancers, which non-Hodgkin's will give you a loss of appetite, nausea and vomiting, headaches, night sweats, skin rash, itching, coughing, shortness of breath, chest pain, abdominal pain, bone pain, headaches, abdominal swelling and fullness, and chronic fatigue and weakness.
Night sweats are never good.
Ugh, no, never a good sign. It causes prostate cancer.
Oh, Jesus.
That will give you difficulty urinating and a weak stream. It will give you blood in the semen, bone pain, erectile dysfunction, and pelvic discomfort and pain. It gives you respiratory cancers.
Jesus.
It gives you a cough that
basically gives you any kind of cancer you can imagine.
Cough that does not go away or gets worse. Chest pain, loss of appetite, loss of voice or hoarseness.
Laura?
You sound like me.
Laura?
I don't have a loss of appetite. Don't you worry.
It was before your time?
Yeah. Weakness and fatigue, shortness of breath, wheezing, bronchitis, and pneumonia infections that keep recurring. If lung cancer spreads to other areas of the body, you may experience jaundice, swelling of lymph nodes, bone pain. It can also cause soft tissue sarcomas, which are cancers there. It's a growing lump under the skin. You can get bowel or stomach blockage. You can get blood and vomit on your stool. You can get black tarry stools. It causes heart conditions. You can have chest pain, chest pressure, shortness of breath. They're commonly asymptomatic, though, the heart conditions you get from it.
So you don't know you have them?
Right, until you have a massive heart attack.
While you're mowing the lawn.
It can also cause... that didn't make any sense. Skin conditions and skin disorders. You can get excessively oily skin. Blackheads, pimples, especially around the eyes and the temples. Severe cases see blackheads and lesions spread to the rest of the face, necks, arms, and behind the ears. Ew. You can get fluid-filled cysts. Ugh. You get dark hair growth. I'm not going to be able to say this right. Porphyria cutanea tarda. You get blistering or increased hair growth on areas of skin exposed to sunlight.
Oh.
It causes scarring. It causes crusting of the skin. It causes hyperpigmentation. And it also causes liver damage.
So were they spreading this shit while the troops were on the ground?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And it didn't matter because it didn't go away. So it
they
didn't
were
matter.
Touching these plants or foliage or
if you're walking through it, it goes into the ground. So anything you're taking from the ground, a river, a stream, yep. It's in the water, it's everywhere. There's neurological disorders associated with Agent Orange. Parkinson's disease is one. You have tremors, slow movement, rigid muscles, the loss of ability to perform unconscious moving, such as blinking, swinging arms while walking, difficulty writing, slurring or hesitation when speaking. You can get peripheral neuropathy, which is a terribly painful disorder. You get prickling, numbness, or tingling in the feet and hands, extreme touch sensitivity. So if someone touches you or something grazes you, you're very sensitive to it.
And you can't, it's hard to walk if you've got neuropathy because you can't feel your feet.
You get muscle weakness, sharp, throbbing, burning, or jabbing pains, a feeling in your hands like you're wearing gloves. Like there's something covering you all the time. Paralysis, sensitivity to heat, extreme sweating, or the inability to sweat, blood pressure changes, and digestive, bowel, or bladder problems. There's other diseases that are presumptive diseases that have to do with Agent Orange, but they don't necessarily diagnose them because you were near Agent Orange. Type 2 diabetes is often associated with people that were exposed. To our Agent Orange.
Also with people who are exposed to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes, but that's why they are presumptive because I don't think they can prove that they get it from that.
Yeah, because it could be anything causing type 2.
You get patches of dark skin with type 2. You get excessive thirst, slow healing cuts and scratches, fatigue, frequent urination, blurred vision, constant hunger, neuropathy, itching and yeast infections, sexual dysfunction, foot numbness or pain. You can have AL amyloidosis. which is an enlarged tongue. You get an enlarged tongue, and sometimes it's scalloped around the edge. You ever notice that when they?
No, that's gross.
They get swelling of the ankles and legs. You have difficulty swallowing, shortness of breath, fatigue, weakness, nausea, diarrhea, numbness or tingling in hands and feet, irregular heartbeat, unexplained weight loss.
Got a lot going on with this stuff, huh?
Skin changes, including easy bruising, thickening, or darker purple patches around the eyes. So that's 14 diseases that are associated with Agent Orange. TCDD, one of the dioxins in it, was also associated in birth defects of exposed veterans' children.
I remember hearing this.
So even if, because it's not my time, it doesn't matter. My father wasn't. But if my father were over Vietnam, I could have something because he was exposed to Agent Orange.
Right.
Since 1991, the National Birth Defect Registry base recorded thousands of cases of birth defects reported by Vietnam vets. In 1996, the National Academy of Sciences found a link between Agent Orange and Spina Bifida.
Wow.
In 2000, a study by the Veterans Health Administration found a moderate to severe birth defects was significantly associated with a mother's military service in Vietnam. So if there was a mother in Vietnam.
So you could be a nurse in Vietnam or something.
And a woman over in Vietnam. So, whatever. And you were exposed to Agent Orange, you have a significantly higher chance of having a birth defect in your children. Wow. Both of these findings pushed the Veterans Administration to fund assistance programs for spina bifida of male or female Vietnam vets and for all birth defects without other known causes in the children of female vets. So if you were a male or a female vet and your child had spina bifida, the VA pays for the child's care. If you are a female vet and your child has any birth defect that doesn't have another explanation, they pay for the coverage of those birth defects. More studies, they kept doing more and more studies, obviously. They kept proving that children of Vietnam vets were at higher risk for spina bifida, hypospadias, cleft palates, cardiovascular defects, hip dislocations, digestive system issues, neoplasms like neuroblastomas, developmental delays, and other malformations of the central nervous system, skeletal systems, and cardiovascular systems. Also, significant increase of spontaneous abortions.
Wow.
The association between Agent Orange exposure and birth defects grew stronger based on the intensity and duration of exposure. So the longer you were there, and the closer you were to the Agent Orange drop or whatever, the more likely your children will have these defects. A study of New Zealand war veterans showed a high frequency of genetic damage in the vets. And the greatest concern of genetic damage is that it can be passed on to future generations. So that is why these kids have all these problems.
Some nasty shit.
It's just going to pass these on to all these people's future generations.
And the country is completely contaminated forever.
Mm-hmm. Children of Vietnam vets have shown consistent increases in learning, attention, and behavioral disorders, all types of skin disorders, problems with tooth development, allergies, asthma, immune system disorders, childhood cancers, thyroid disease, and childhood diabetes. TCDD can also alter hormones and reproductive tissue development. So these kids could be affected. It could affect them having kids. I have a fact sheet on spina bifida just because that is kind of like the main thing they focus on with the Agent Orange, the Vietnam vets' children. So spina bifida is a birth defect that mainly affects the spine. Normally in the first month of pregnancy, a special set of cells forms the neural tube. Mm-hmm. So the top of the tube becomes the brain and the remainder becomes the spinal cord. In spina bifida, the neural tube does not close all the way. And some of the bones of the spine don't close in the back. So your spine is open or not fully formed. Abnormalities of the brains, like hydrocephalus, also come along with the abnormalities of the spine because the neural tube closes first in the middle and then closes up and down.
That's weird.
So when you're forming your neural tube, when you're like a month in fetus, it starts to close in the middle and then gradually goes to the top and the bottom of the brain and the base of your spinal cord. So you can have problems with your brain and the lower spinal cord with spinal bifida.
And it all depends on where on the spinal cord the spina bifida hydrocele or whatever it's called is.
Right.
Whether you're going to be able to walk or not, or how bad your hydrocephalus is going to be.
Right. So 1,400 babies born in the United States have spina bifida. There is no cure, but most people with spina bifida do lead long and productive lives.
And there's no cure, but they are doing in vitro surgeries.
Yes, they are now closing the spina bifidas in vitro. Which is
crazy.
Some of them.
Yeah.
There's 4 types of spina bifida. Occulta is the mildest and most common form, in which one or more of the bones in the spinal column or your vertebrae are malformed. Occulta means hidden, indicates that a layer of skin covers the opening in the bones of the spine. So there's an opening, but you can't see because your skin's over it. It's often found by accident on an x-ray. And it very rarely causes disabilities or symptoms.
Oh, that's good.
Closed neural tube defects is another type. It's like a diverse group of defects in which the spine can have malformations of fat, bone, or the membranes that cover the spinal cord. Many of these neural tube defects require surgery in childhood. People with this type can have weakness of the legs and trouble with bowel and bladder control. These issues can change or progress as a child grows. Meningocele is another type. It occurs when a sac with spinal fluid pokes through the spine. It's normally found, the spinal fluid is normally found, all around your spine and all around your brain. But a problem with the bony covering of the spine allows it to poke out when you have this kind. The malformation contains no nerves, and it may or may not be covered by a layer of skin. People with meningocele usually have minor symptoms. Myelomeningocele is the most severe form of spina bifida. A portion of the spinal cord or nerves is exposed in a sac through an opening in the spine that may or may not be covered in meninges. The opening can be closed by surgeons while the baby is in utero or shortly after the baby is born. Most people with this have changes in their brain structure, leg weakness, and bowel and bladder dysfunction. It's often called a snowflake condition because no 2 people with the condition are the same.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought you were going to be because they're all pansies. No, just kidding, because I don't think anybody with that is pansies.
No. Typically, the lower in the spine the opening occurs, it relates to less symptoms, right? So if it's way far down, you're not going to have as severe symptoms as if it's higher up in your spine. They require constant follow-up with physicians throughout their whole life to maximize their function and prevent complications, obviously. Complications of spina bifida are abnormal sensation or paralysis, Chiari-2 malformation, which parts of the brain called the brainstem and the cerebellum, they protrude downward into the spinal cord area.
We just talked about this at work the other night that somebody had Chiari syndrome and they were closing it.
Yeah.
Do you remember who was it? I can remember who was telling me about it.
No.
But somebody was talking about that this person had Chiari syndrome and the surgeon was a little nervous about doing it, and I think they were having
anytime anything's going through the bottom of your skull, it's dangerous. So the Chiari-2 malformation rarely causes symptoms. But when it does, it's because your brain is pressing onto your spinal cord. It can cause symptoms like difficulty breathing, swallowing, arm weakness. But they will do surgery if you have symptoms to reduce the pressure. You could have hydrocephalus, which is a blockage of cerebrospinal fluid. So hydrocephalus is a buildup of the fluid that surrounds the brain.
That's when they put shunts in.
Yes, it can put damaging pressure on the brain. You never want pressure on your brain. It's commonly treated by surgically implanting a shunt. So it's like a little hollow tube that we put up in the brain, and it empties down usually into your belly. And sometimes it can empty out to the outside.
Yeah, sometimes I saw recently one, it emptied into the chest, which I thought was bizarre.
Yes, I've seen that too.
I thought they were really bizarre.
They can also do an endoscopic third ventriculostomy or an ETV, and that just creates a new path for it to flow. They don't use the tube, they just open up a pathway. It can cause meningitis, which is an infection in the meninges covering the brain. It can cause meningitis can cause brain injury and can be life-threatening. Meningitis is very serious. It can cause tethered cord syndrome. Tethered cord syndrome, no matter what kind of spina bifida you have, it can occur. I know.
got the spit.
I'm trying to talk. So, it's very rare in individuals with spina bifida occulta, though. Usually the spinal cord and nerves float freely. There's nothing, it's all floating in the fluid. A tethered cord means that there is some type of tissue attached to and pulling the cord down.
Never good.
No. This can cause damage to the nerves and decrease feeling and strength. It could also cause problems with your bowel and bladder. If you have problems with your spine, you often have problems with your bowel and bladder. Which brings me to, you can have bowel and bladder incontinence. That usually affects people with the Meningocele and closed neural tube defects. The nerves at the very bottom of the spine control the bowel and bladder. So if you have a spina bifida down there, that's why you're going to have problems with bowel and bladder.
The equina?
Quadus equina.
Quadus equina, because it looks like the tail of a horse.
You can have learning disabilities from spina bifida, including difficulty paying attention, understanding concepts, impaired motor skills, impaired memory, and difficulty with organization and problem solving. Other complications of spina bifida are skin ulcers, because you can't move as freely, low bone mineral density, impaired male fertility, obesity, and kidney failure. People with Meningocele are at risk for precocious puberty.
Precocious puberty is when your 6-year-old starts getting boobs.
Yeah. Very, very early.
Very early. They start with this stuff.
Also sleep apnea and depression. I think that was it for the spina bifida. But they mainly focus on spina bifida, and that is covered no matter if your father or mother was in Vietnam, because they know that Agent Orange
causes spina bifida.
Causes spina bifida. So then I have a few little just stories that people wrote into the Birth Defect Research for Children page. I'm just going to read them as they are. It says, I lost my husband from a cancerous brain tumor 13 months ago. My son has many disabilities, including Tourette syndrome, mental retardation, and mild cerebral palsy, hydrocephalus, and he is profoundly deaf. He will never be able to live on his own.
All of that from Agent Orange?
The husband died, and then the son was born with all of that. My father passed away in 1998. He had many health problems, including type 2 diabetes. He was only 50 years old. Agent Orange has been a part of my life from the moment I was born. I was born without my right leg, several of my fingers, and my big toe on my left foot. My mother had 3 miscarriages. My younger brother has to wear bifocals and suffers from chronic joint pain.
Wow.
This one says, I was in the infantry in the area where the highest concentrations of Agent Orange were used. My oldest daughter had chronic myelogenous leukemia. I served 4 terms in Vietnam. We have 3 children. 1 daughter with a heart defect, another daughter with scoliosis and digestive problems, and a son born with a defective optic nerve in his right eye that has left him blind in that eye. And there are there's no history of
any issues,
birth defects on either side of that family.
As if these poor men and women didn't deal with enough shit over there, coming back to a country that hated them, fighting a war that made no sense,
and
then
they suffer from illness, and then they pass it to their kids.
Like, they just got the shit stick all the way around.
And this one says, I am a 57-year-old Vietnam vet who was exposed to Agent Orange. At age 41, I had to have an emergency heart bypass. I have had 6 heart attacks since my surgery.
Oh my God.
Our youngest daughter suffered with learning disabilities through grade school and high school. Her first child was born in 2002 with complex congenital heart disease in fetal hydrops. He only lived 5 hours.
Oh.
I feel that I passed on something to our daughter because I was exposed to Agent Orange. It's literally not just like, it's not even just their kids. It's genetic. It changed their genetics, so it can go on forever.
That's the thing with like the 50s and 60s. They were doing shit they didn't know what it was going to do.
Right.
So like they're dumping this chemical. They had no clue what they were doing. They knew it got rid of the foliage, but they didn't. Nobody was looking at long-term effects of this stuff.
No, and like they said, when they manufactured it, I don't know what happened, but they did it incorrectly somehow. There was a manufacturing problem, and all these dioxins were in it. And apparently they used all these other color like they named these agents: Agent Blue, Agent Red, Agent Orange, Yellow, whatever. Agent Orange was the least toxic.
Wow.
Yeah. They used Agent Orange the longest, but the other ones were more.
Could you imagine?
Toxic. No.
I gotta come up with a new repertoire. All I can say is wow, and can you imagine?
I know. I have 2 daughters. One was born while I was in Vietnam. She is healthy. My other daughter was born 3 years after I returned. She has lupus, sojourns, and a disease that has destroyed the cartilage in her nose, hip, and ankle.
Ew. Sojourns. I've never heard of that either.
I have, but I have to look it up.
We're going to do an episode on sojourns because I've never heard of it.
My husband died 2 years ago from Agent Orange related problems. He was a Navy SEAL and served 3 tours in Vietnam. We have 3 children. Our oldest was born with a congenital heart defect. He has had 7 open heart surgeries. Our daughter was born with a brownish birthmark on one of her legs. Our youngest son is on Ritalin because of his attention disorder. I am an Agent Orange widow. My husband died 6 years ago. 2 of my 3 children were born after my husband returned from Vietnam. Both are insulin-dependent diabetics. The youngest also suffers from gastric and thyroid problems. I have 2 daughters. One has Spina Bifida and is covered through the VA program. My other daughter has had seizures since age 3 and recently has been diagnosed with a brain tumor. The VA says her problems are not related to my service in Vietnam.
The VA doesn't want to cover much.
Yeah, I mean, it's pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is a 100% disabled service-connected veteran of the Vietnam War. His disabilities are due to Agent Orange exposure. We have 2 sons, ages 26 and I can't tell if that says 15, that are both ADD, ADHD, and get skin rashes on their hands and feet. So this is, I had heard of Agent Orange, like I've heard that name, and I knew it was bad, but I didn't know, this literally can just go down through their genetics. And this is just our soldiers who were there for like a tour of, 6 months. The Vietnamese,
forget it,
live there. They don't get to leave.
And they're eating and drinking that water.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they have. Like, I can't even fathom what they're, what is happening with their birth defects and what they died of and everything. So I'm sure it's awful. But that's Agent Orange.
That's something. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, kind of off track, I was watching a show last night, and it was the capture of Osama bin Laden. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about the SEAL teams, and the graphics were crazy and how they decided that's where he was. It was a very interesting show, which most of the time I don't like to watch that stuff because it just disturbs me, and I don't like to see servicemen getting killed. But they were interviewing one of the Navy SEALs, and he's like, I'm a SEAL and I'm married and I'm living in a neighborhood. He goes, and I'm talking to my neighbor. He knows I'm a Navy SEAL, but they don't know what these guys do.
Yeah.
And at the time, this particular Navy SEAL knew they were going after bin Laden. And for like 3 months, these guys were training on how to deal with so they would do these simulations over and over and over. What about this situation? So he's training all this stuff so he can get Osama bin Laden. Mm-hmm. He goes, my neighbor's talking to me about his stress at work. And he's like, yeah, it's going to be a stressful week. We got to come up with the money. And he's like, this guy has no idea what stress is. I was like, no, he doesn't. The world depends on you killing Osama bin Laden. This guy's worried about, I don't know, his fucking accounts coming in. I was like, they really kind of put it into perspective. Mm-hmm. So,
it's like what I tell Mike.
Yeah.
Well, it was a really stressful day. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you do CPR on that person?
Did you deliver a stillborn? No, you didn't. We love you, Mike, but still. Okay, so I'm going to cover Legionnaires' disease. Mm-hmm. How this topic even came up, we're going to discuss last summer. Okay. 2020 was a great year. So in 1 week, my house was hit by lightning. Mm-hmm. My cat died. Mm-hmm. My brother died. Mm-hmm. And my aunt that I take care of ended up in the hospital. It was a great week. Mm-hmm. So I had to go down to Florida while my brother was dying. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get to go anyplace fun in Florida. I went to scenic, lovely Tallahassee. And my parents have a home down there. Very long story why they have a home in lovely, scenic Tallahassee. So there's no cable. There's no nothing down in Tallahassee because they're not going to pay for it because they don't live there all the time. But I get it. Mm-hmm. So I'm with my parents, which is never... No. I love my parents, but it's not always a good time. And I don't know what to do with myself. So we're watching TV and on comes Forensic Files. One of my favorite shows. Though I do think that man's name, like his voice... puts me to sleep instantaneously.
I would try it.
My husband and I, when I was pregnant my first, he'd put Forensic Files. It wouldn't be 30 seconds. I'd be asleep. I love the guy, but his voice is so soothing. And
it is. I know what you mean.
Out like a light. It's like the best sleep pill ever is Forensic Files. So they did this story on Legionnaires' disease. Fucking fascinating. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. So we're going to talk Legionnaires' disease. Okay. So, in case the youngins don't know what a Legionnaire is, the American Legion was started in 1919 as a patriotic veterans organization. It focused on service to veterans, service members, and communities. So they would get that, you get all these VFW posts, Veterans of Foreign Wars, you got the Legion, American Legion in every city. We got a couple in Revere.
My chair's up on my island, up at the island. They're from the American Legion from my grandfather.
See, this is what we're talking about. So it has become one of the most influential non-profit organizations in the U.S. It has nearly 2 million members with 13,000 posts worldwide. It's where almost everybody in my family's had a bridal shower or a retirement party.
That on the island,
Yeah.
there's an American Legion.
You go to the Legion.
We have a house on a remote island in Maine. There's an American Legion on the island.
Yep, you go to the post. So in July of 1976, the Pennsylvania chapter of the American Legion is holding its annual convention in Philadelphia. At the time, in 1976, which is the bicentennial of the United States of America, all right? Bicentennial. You have a garbage strike going on.
Nice.
So there's garbage.
In Philadelphia.
In the summer. Yeah. Rats, and more rats. So there's garbage all over the streets. You have a terrorist threat against the Legion convention because they're concerned about shit going overseas. Like these fucking vets have anything to do with it. So there's stuff going on, and this particular hotel, what's the name of it? I'll get to it. They're having issues with their AC, people coming and going. There's a lot going on in the city. Okay. So the American Legion, they're holding their annual, it's like an annual event. It's a convention. Everybody comes in from Pennsylvania. They all get drunk. They all have fun. They all see each other for 3 days. Boom, they all go back home. So they're holding it in Philadelphia. It's members from all over Pennsylvania, and they descend on the city for 3 days of wild times in Pennsylvania in 1976. Well, I mean, Philadelphia was the capital for a while. Okay, so July 21st, 1976, you have more than 4,000 Legionnaires showing up. It's the country's 200th birthday, and everyone is looking for a good time. I have the cutest picture of me at the bicentennial, because were you even alive? No, you weren't. I'm 3 years old, and I have a little shirt. It's pink and white gingham, and there's a girl on it, and it says something about like Dwayne. What's knock knock? Who's there? Dwayne who? Dwayne the lake I'm drowning. That's the dress I'm wearing. It's the cutest part. But I have my little ponytail.
That says all that on your shirt?
on my dress. On my dress. Because it's the 70s. And the 70s was a no holds barred.
Wow.
You got to wear whatever the fuck you want. You should see the outfits that my brothers have. In 1976, everybody has a picture of them holding the Liberty Bell.
Yeah.
So I've got my Liberty Bell picture from 1976. I might be alive for 2076. I'll be 103 years old, but I might be alive. And I'll tell you, if I am, I'm taking a picture with the fucking bell. All right? And I'm going to find that dress. Dwayne the Lake and Drowning. My brother still brings up that dress.
I cannot believe that was on the dress.
Yep, it was the 70s, dude. Anything went.
Wow.
We might have to do something in the 70s this year, because the 70s was something. All right. So, the vets, they're whooping it up at the Bellevue Stratford Hotel. That's the name of the hotel.
There you go.
They stay all over the city, but the Bellevue Stratford sees a majority of the Legionnaires staying there. Page flip. We gotta get computerized.
Oh,
we gotta get computerized, dude. The page flips are killing me. So after 3 days of fun in the city of brotherly love, everyone goes home. Okay. Days later, July 27th, 3 days after the end of the convention, 61-year-old retired U.S. Air Force captain and American Legion bookkeeper dies from a quote-unquote heart attack.
Okay.
By August 2nd, hundreds of Legionnaires are sick and 22 have died.
Wow.
Dr. Ernest Campbell from Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, noticed that 3 of his patients all had similar symptoms, and he reports it to the Board of Health, who then reports it to the CDC. Once the CDC comes in, shit's getting real, because that place, we got to do an episode on them. They are something. They launch what would be the most extensive and expensive medical investigation in its history. So we're going to talk about Legionnaire's disease. Symptoms of Legionnaire's disease: cough, shortness of breath, fever of up to 107 degrees, muscle aches and a headache, and the symptoms begin 2 to 10 days after exposure. Mm-hmm. The symptoms can progress to pneumonia, and you should see a doctor right away if you get the pneumonia, because it gets really bad if you get the pneumonia. The CDC brings on a Dr. David Frazier. He starts, when I tell you the CDC descends on Pennsylvania, mm-hmm. they descend on Pennsylvania, right? It gets real. He starts comparing sick people to the healthy people. Why did some get it? Why didn't others? So there's like, you and I room, mm-hmm. you die of it. They're all over me to find out why I didn't die from mm-hmm. it. He starts collecting data, which is difficult because they're all over the state. So right. They have to go all over the state of Pennsylvania. They're hitting hospital rooms. They're hitting people's homes. Those who are sick are visited at the hospital, and they're getting extensive questionnaires. People who attended the conference are all getting mailed questionnaires at home. Roommates of those who had died are given extensive physicals. Mm-hmm. And by now, 39 people have died, all from pneumonia. Yes. The news gets wind of it, and it gets worldwide. It's national news, and that's when it's coined Legionnaires' disease, named after the Legionnaires. So the people who didn't attend, now people who weren't actually at the conference, but were in the area of the hotel, they're dying, and they're getting sick. People who had been on the sidewalk, they start showing up at the hospital, and they're like, what the fuck is mm-hmm. going on? These people have never stepped foot in the hotel, but they're sick. So the CDC, they're collecting dust samples, air, water, rat shit, pigeon droppings, tissue samples from the victims, anything and everything you could gather from this hotel, the CDC has gathered to start coming up with what the hell's going on. And they're looking at everything and developing theories. What are some of the theories? Swine flu, because they have similar symptoms. Mm-hmm. Parrot flu, which you get from pigeon droppings.
I was going to say, is that the pigeon one? Blech. Yeah. That was on Call the Midwives the other day.
Oh, was it? Oh, I'm going to have to look at I love that show.
And hemochromatosis.
I haven't watched it in a long time.
New ones just came out.
I got to watch it again.
Sorry.
Bacteria from the trash. They're wondering, is it the trash mm-hmm. that's all over the street from the trash strike? Is it the terrorist attack that they threatened? My favorite. Is it super gonorrhea?
Ooh.
Super gonorrhea. These 60-year-old men are getting super gonorrhea.
They could be getting
you know what? I should have looked it up and gone into it, but I didn't even want to get into what the hell could be super gonorrhea because it just sounds disgusting.
Sounds
Maybe we'll do it for Valentine's Day next year.
That'll be going.
So the public's in a panic. No one's so one of these poor guys, very popular guy in his town. I think it was in Bloomsburg. Everybody loved him. He's a great guy. He dies. Nobody goes to the funeral because they're all afraid of what he has. Oh. Nobody knows what he has. So they're like, it was kind of shocking that nobody would attend this poor guy's funeral. Mm-hmm. Then you have Bob McGarry, whose roommate died from it, and he's put through this crazy physical because he's fine. And like, why did Bob get sick and you didn't get sick? So all kinds of samples are taken from him, and at this point, the CDC determines that the strange illness is not spread from person to person. Mm-hmm. It's not a contagious illness. Those that are dying are usually over 50. They're smokers, and they have underlying illnesses. Mm-hmm. Sounds familiar, Laura? Mm-hmm. Employees of the hotel aren't sick. And 27 that are dead at this point. And
the employees aren't sick?
Mm-mm. Employees of the hospital of the hotel aren't getting sick. And they're like, what the hell is going on? Like, some of these guys with diabetes, they had heart disease anyway. Like, they already had issues, and then this just sends them over the edge. But the CDC is trying and trying. They have no idea what it is, but they know somehow it's connected to this hotel. Mm-hmm. And they know that it's airborne, and that's all they can come up with. Mm-hmm. 5 months goes by. So now we're in there, like we're at Christmas. And the CDC's having its big, whopping,
Christmas
one hell of a time Christmas party. They're all showing up in biohazard suits. Their best sequin-lined biohazard suits. Like, can you imagine what a shindig that must be at the CDC?
Yeah. No one's touching anyone.
Nobody's drinking from the punch bowl. No. Nobody's eating anything that isn't wrapped. No. A bunch of agoraphobes or germaphobes in one big room. That'd be fucking great. So you have Dr. Joseph McDade, who's been working on this case as well. He's at the party with his colleagues. They're whooping it up. Mm-hmm. They're all, God knows what they're drinking. And his friends, like, this is the kind of party it is. So you haven't found out what happened with Legionnaires?
This is the Christmas party.
This is the Christmas party. What's the matter with you? How could you not have found out? Like, it's been 5 months. You didn't figure this out yet? What's the matter with you? Like, well, you're pathetic, obviously, because you haven't figured out what's going on. So he's now embarrassed. Mm. He's frustrated. He leaves the fucking party. And like any good CDC member, what does he do?
Goes right to work.
He goes to the lab.
course he does.
He goes, I'll prove them wrong. I know what I'm doing. So he goes to the lab and he starts looking over all of the shit he's already looked over 500 times. So he starts looking, because he's a big party guy, he starts looking at slides of liver biopsies from the guinea pigs that they infected with whatever these guys had. And he notices that there's a bacteria he has never seen in his life in this sample. So at first he's like, these must have been contaminated with something else. He's like, this can't be it. And he's like, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take these slides with the bacteria and I'm going to expose them to the blood of survivors. Oh. So if there's antibodies to this bacteria is going to go bright green under the scope. So he exposes them. I flip my page. And he looks under the microscope. And Laura, what does he see?
Bright green.
Bright fucking green.
Wow.
Whoa! And he names the bacteria Legionella pneumophilia. Pneumophila? Something pneuma.
Okay.
After the Legionnaires who died. He discovers that erythromycin kills this bacteria. So it's very easily taken care of. And he also knows it likes warm water and it's spread through water droplets. But he still has no idea where the fuck it came from. Because the people on the sidewalk are sick, he determines it had to come from the roof of the Bellevue Stratford. The way they come up with the shit they come up with. So what is on the roof of the Bellevue Stratford Hotel? A giant AC unit cooling tower. When you look, so they go through all these graphics. You should, I think it's season 1, episode 7 of Forensic Files, because I had to relook it up. They show you the cooling towers, and they have these huge fans in it, and they're circulating the air. But at the bottom of these huge cooling towers are water pans. These water pans collect all the water. The water sits there
in the heat.
And they were having problems with their AC to begin with. So the Legionella grows in these pans. Then the fans kick on. They suck the Legionella into the air, throw it into the air, and it cascades down the sides of the hotel. And then it gets sucked into the lobby by the hotel intake fans. So that explains why the people on the sidewalk got sick. That explains how the people in the inside of the hotel get sick. And they think that the workers were exposed to it so often and they're young, they were immune to it. Okay. So, by the time the CDC gets to the hotel, because now it's 6 months later, and they test the water, Legionella's gone. It's gone through a winter time now. It's killed off everything. There's nothing in there. But when they stop looking at AC units at hotels across the country, they find it in 6 different U.S. hotels. And they think that it's been killing people for years and nobody knew what it was. So they link it to an outbreak in 1957 in Minnesota. They link it to an outbreak in 1965 in Washington, D.C. In total, Legionnaires breakout in 1976 killed 34 people and made 221 people sick. It was a significant outbreak. So, prevention, Legionnaires disease. Clean buildings and water systems. Places that Legionnaires can grow. Hot tubs. Hot tubs.
Well, if the water's just sitting there, anything can grow.
But hot tubs, you want to think it's bubbly and it's warm and it feels great. Hot tubs. I think of friggin' Kramer when I think of hot tubs. Remember when he had a hot tub in his apartment and he fell asleep in it and he almost died?
Oh.
Pretty funny. Hot water tanks and heaters. Large plumbing systems. Cooling towers. And decorative fountains can carry Legionella
that
disease.
Little trickle as it moving that water.
Yeah. Is that all I wrote? I guess that's the end of my Legionnaires.
So there was just an outbreak like 2 years ago in Hampton.
So they're worried about it in any ACs. Like, I remember when this came out, everybody was petrified that their household ACs were going to carry Legionella. But Legionnaires are going to clean your filters. It's not so much the filter of the AC as much as the water that might have been sitting in the AC. And it has to be warm water, likes hot water, likes heat. So I thought I was fascinated by that. It's the only thing that got me through my trip to Tallahassee, Florida last summer, which was quite a summer. And I've been meaning to do that episode, so we decided to cover it for Memorial Day.
Yeah.
On that note,
Yes.
As I like to finish every episode, on that note, I want to thank again. I know it's the day that we don't really thank our vets, but I'm going to thank them anyway for all those that have passed away in the past. For those who may pass away in the future, thank you for the service. Thank you for keeping this country the way it is. And have a very safe and happy Memorial Day.
Yes.
Keep your gas grills away from the side of your house.
Yeah, don't let it melt.
Let's not explode anything. Keep sparklers away from your hair.
It's not 4th of July yet.
It's
Don't
not
light
4th of
any
July. No
sparklers.
fireworks. No none of that. Have a very safe and enjoyable Memorial Day.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Like, subscribe, rate, and review the Scissors and Scrubs podcast on whatever podcast app you listen to us on. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Scissors and Scrubs. And email us any of your stories or thoughts to scissorsnscrubs@gmail.com.